Okay, so I'm going to share another example now of how a student has used evidence to support their argument. It's another report. Sorry, they're the easiest ones for me to make a video over the top of. And this student was a bit more creative in how they presented it. They didn't just write it, they pretended that they were a consultant working for an organization to produce a mental health report. So you might see these in your research, or you might have seen these come from the government. It's exactly the same sort of thing, but they've given a specific context. And so again, we see the contents page, we see them being an ethical researcher. They've even put in the official stuff like pretending they're at a conference. And same approach here where they have brought out their argument and they've identified an answer to their question, they've listed off a range of information, etc., etc. So very similar to what we saw before. So this student has sectioned out their argument. They had very different focus questions, so they didn't flow. So they've got section 1, section 2, etc. And what they've done is then actually brought this into very similar structure where they've got a really clear topic sentence. It was evident that this happened. And then they've got their discussion where they've enhanced their topic sentence with their explanatory type sentence. Then they've introduced their resource and they've given us that nice little epitaph where, remember, we said they give us a bit of background information. Who is Damien Bonson? Well, he is an award-winning human rights person. And then we have our actual data. Okay. Then what the student does again to substantiate is they introduce a second resource, another one. They introduce it by name as well. And then they have a summary. So instead of quotation here, they have a summary of the information. Then they are being very quick here because they're going to talk about lots and lots of different information. So they're not over elaborating. This is kind of like a background statement. So they've got information there, but then what they've also done is these little grab boxes, because this is the type of report where you would have your key info, but then you also have little boxes on the outside. And so what they've done is they've looked at this survey that they've mentioned up here, the LGBT one, and then they've actually given us some more credibility information, because this wouldn't fit in a sentence. This would read really weirdly if we put that in. So they've pulled it out and they're using that to substantiate the choice of that resource. You can see them work through this, and then at the bottom they have footnotes. And what we can also take a look at is, as we go through this piece, the footnotes sometimes have more than one resource in them, and that's because more than one resource has indicated that idea and they have brought multiple of those resources together. Graphs and figures can also be a really good way to identify evidence, particularly if they're your own generated graphs. If they're not, then you probably need to, or you do need to reference them. And you also notice that the student has used some of their structure here to actually explain the importance of that graph there. So it's not just left hanging. I'm not wondering why I look at this graph. I understand what it's telling me. Let's see if we've got two in here. Yes, we do. So what you'll notice is in footnote 7, we have the Beyond Blue reference. Then you'll notice we have a semicolon and we have a second reference here by Jessica Lepresti. And they've put them both under number 7 because at that sentence, number 7, here it is, okay, fear of gender discrimination is a key risk factor, and that is supported by both of those resources. Cool. We've got 30 seconds left. So the next thing, just to whiz through quickly, you'll notice they're integrating a range of different resources. They create some diagrams to actually convey information as well to really help us to understand what they're talking about. They also use some wordles to actually bring together some information in a different way. And I guess what